Welcome back to the channel. As today we're going to be going in the DeLorean once again and taking a look at the 2018 NFL draft class. We're going to see which teams hit big home runs and which teams probably wish they used their draft capital a little bit better. But first, I want to give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. Thank you so much for sponsoring the video. Underdog Fantasy currently has Best Ball Mania, baby, where they're giving out $15 million in cash prizes. So if you haven't gotten an Underdog yet, sign up with promo code Broshmo. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. I love Underdog, and they also want to make it known, hey, if you got a gambling problem or if you want to know more information about us, we got it right here on the screen. So feel free to check that out. I always say bet responsibly, my friends. But let's go ahead, get into this sucker, as we're going to be starting with the Buffalo Bills. Oh boy, look, they got the best picks and the worst picks here too. They gave the final grade an A+, and I mean, they got Josh Allen. That's kind of already a hit of a class. They got their quarterback of the future, baby. So I'm not gonna lie to y'all, honestly, for me, the rest of the class is kind of irrelevant. Josh Allen, quarterback, franchise quarterback, kind of a big hit. Tremaine Edmonds, unfortunately, kind of like breaks out in his contract year, and they decide not to bring him back. Phillips was kind of an alright depth guy, but he ends up going elsewhere. Taron Johnson still on the squad as a solid slot player. I believe Neal's still there as depth. He might actually be elsewhere now. Wyatt Teller, he ended up getting traded for what, like a 6th round pick, so they got less back than what they invested in him, and he ends up being just great with the Browns. Like, this is what I love. I love doing these redrafts, which we'll do at the end of the week Friday, so stick around for that. But he ends up being really good for the Browns. But at the end of the day, it's like, you win. You drafted Josh Allen. You did good. So kind of agree with that. A+ of a draft. Worst pick. I don't know. Can't really say anything about a worst pick here. I think honestly they did a fine job. Like, Phillips is a fine depth guy. And so is Johnson. So it's like, yeah, it was a fine draft. All right, my Miami Dolphins, and this one hurts a little bit. So they have our best pick as being Minkah Fitzpatrick, and if things worked out with Minkah, golly, that would have felt great. He just did. We ended up trading him away for a first rounder, and now he's just having a great career there in Pittsburgh. I'm happy for him. Mike Gesicki really didn't do a lot for us. He was a good receiving target, but never really emerged. Now he's with the Patriots, so great. We got to worry about that. Jerome Baker's kind of there. He's just a very athletic linebacker we have. We do have Smythe still around, but he doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Kalen Ballage didn't turn to anything. And like, mainly when I look to give these grades, I look at the first 4 rounds. Those are the rounds you typically want to find superstars, starters, or some sort of role players. So you want to be able to maybe hit those in the first 4 rounds, and then maybe you get steals in rounds 5 through 7. I'm not including their undrafted free agent class though. I'm just not. Listen, how did they draft? That's what we're looking at here. And I mean, honestly, our best pick, the guy that produced the most for us, might have been Sanders. He's not even with the squad anymore. Nah, it's Baker and Gesicki. But let's be honest, this class, if we're going to look at it and be like, well, at least we got a first rounder out of it. But Jerome Baker is kind of an okay starter. That's the best thing I could really say about this class. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. If as a Dolphins fan, fins up, baby. It's kind of a miss. This was a miss of a class. What did we get out of it? What did we get out of it? A first round pick. Cool. But I mean, hey, we get to look at the 2019 class next year, because what, the Dolphins got Christian Wilkins in that class. Didn't we have multiple first rounders? I don't know. We'll find out. I'm covering the 2019 class next week. But yeah, it's a miss for me. It's a miss for me, dog. We got the New York Jets, and you know what? Like, they said worst pick Sam Darnold. Oh, they saw the future. They saw it. Okay, so I don't like, okay, they traded away a lot. That's a big thing. They traded away a a lot. Like what they swapped first round picks and they gave away like what 3 second rounders to move up a couple of spots to get Sam Darnold. So like I mean let's actually read what they have here. It wasn't if it wasn't all for naught in this class, but it was pretty darn close. Oh no, these are grades. These are post grades, aren't they? I thought these were grades at the time. No, this was last year by Mike Renner. Oh, okay. I'm not even gonna bother looking at the grades. And I was like, wow, can see the future. Yeah, I'm not even bother looking at the grades. Obviously, this is a miss of a class, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. Like, listen, they swung on quarterback. I don't mind that. Yeah, they gave up a lot to get him, but they thought this was their franchise guy. Nathan Shepard was kind of a fine depth guy. Now he's over with the Saints. Herdon injuries kind of ruined his career, and then after that, like they had these 3 6-round picks. And Fadukasi actually ended up being pretty solid, but now he's over in the Jags, and he's kind of a role player there, or at least he's in their rotation. So like, yeah, you walk away with literally nothing in this class. Like Sam Darnold, things didn't work out. That kind of sucks. It's a miss. Oh no, the New England Patriots. Jeez, they drafted the wrong freaking Georgia running back, Sony Michel. And you'd be like, oh, Sony Michel helped us to win the Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I don't care. What has he done for your franchise? Oh, a hot lot of nothing. Isaiah Wynn ends up probably being the better starter here, or the better pick. And it's just he's not much more than just an average starter, though. That was kind of the thing with him. Duke Dawson doesn't work out. Like, actually, probably the only player they have that has, I guess, longevity with the squad is Jawan Bentley. He's still around playing linebacker there. Started at linebacker. But, I mean, having 2 first-round picks, like, it's a miss of a class. It's a miss of a class. What did you get out of this class? And it was in the 5th round. What did you get out of this class? Oh, we got an average starting linebacker. Cool. Look, Braxton Berrios up in here, though. Ends up doing all right for the Jets. Let me bring the miss down. All right. Yeah, ends up doing well for the Jets. Cincinnati Bengals. This one, the unfortunate Billy Price pick. Oh, man. Not saying that didn't set him back, but yeah, the offensive line was kind of set back. But their next 2 picks were really good. Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in football, definitely a top 10 guy. Sam Hubbard, really good edge too. You can't really say much about these next 2 picks. Darius Phillips was actually a pretty solid like wide or cornerback 4-5 on the squad. Auden Tate had moments, but I don't know. Just getting these 2 guys kind of makes me feel better about the class. I mean, it sucks that they're not with the roster now, or at least Jesse Bates isn't. They didn't want to pay him, but I'm going to give it a bet. I think it's a fine class. Yeah, you goofed on the first round pick, but your 2 out of your 3 day 2 picks end up being quality starters, and but you didn't pay Bates, but it kind of is what it is. I think it's meh. Going to the Cleveland Browns. Listen, they took a swing on Baker Mayfield, and that's A-okay. You took a swing on quarterback. You missed. It happens, but it's a position worth taking a swing on. Denzel Ward ends up being a really good corner, so it's like, cool, you hit on one of these 2 top 5 picks you had. It's just unfortunate the player you missed on was the quarterback position. They got Nick Chubb in the 2nd round. He's great. He's around the roster. They got him. They got Ward. Corbett, solid player, just not for the Browns. He goes to the Rams. He's okay. And now he's honestly a solid, like he's an average guard in the NFL there for the Panthers. Gennard Avery, I'm surprised not much came of him. He ended up getting moved over, like traded to the Eagles, where I thought he'd play a bigger role, and he just didn't. He ended up being a depth guy. But I don't know. This one's tough to grade. You miss on quarterback, you hit on corner. The only thing to come out of your day 2 picks, you got to start a run back. Oh, he's one of the best, if not the best run back in the NFL. How many wins did that lead to? Not a hot lot. It's because is it a miss or is it a hit? I'm gonna give it meh. I mean, you gotta, like, with 2 top 5 picks, you gotta hit on one, right? Yeah, it should be a given. You're hitting on one. But to miss on quarterback, man, I don't know. This kind of almost leans into miss, but I'm gonna give it meh. The Baltimore Ravens. This was the Lamar Jackson draft. Just great. They move. I think they trade down, and then they move back up into the first round. So they trade down to 25, get a Hayden Hurst. Not great. But they move back into the first round, which I believe it was the Eagles. Because isn't it where they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl? Nick Foles? I think so. But they trade back in. They get their quarterback of the future, Lamar Jackson. And officially, now he's got that new contract. They end up hitting on Orlando Brown. They ended up not wanting to pay him because he wanted to move to the left side as well. So that's fine and dandy. They move. Unfortunately, you have to move on they traded him away for like a first and some change. So not so bad. Mark Andrews ends up being the tight end, and a great tight end at that, top 3 tight end in the league. Anthony Averett was pretty solid depth. Deshaun Elliott was actually a pretty solid box safety. Of course, he's now with... Where did he go? He was with the Lions. I don't know if he's still there. Bradley Bozeman ended up becoming a solid starter at center. He's now another guy that's with the Panthers. This is a big home run class. Not only did you get your franchise quarterback, but you hit on a variety of other picks in Orlando Brown, Mark Andrews. You got some steals here in Bozeman and Elliott. So this ended up being a really good class for the Ravens. All right, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Terrell Edmonds ends up being a big miss, big waste of a pick. Actually, this whole draft's a big waste. The only guy I think still... actually, that's not true. I was about to say the only guy on the roster still, I think, is Okorafor, who... is he still being projected as the starter? Or it really depends on what they're going to do with Broderick Jones now. Is he going to be a starter on the right side or the left side? They got him projected on the left side. I think that's good. Very interesting. Oh, they're going to put Spencer Anderson at center? Ooh, this is going to be interesting preseason. But Okorafor, okay, cool. They got a right tackle starter. He's very mid, even below mid. Samuels was an alright backup at some points, but Mason Rudolph, this was just a big miss of a class. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. Edmonds was never very good. Alright, so this was where they traded down. They grabbed all those second rounders from the Jets. They get Quentin Nelson, Shaquille Leonard, Braden Smith guaranteed. When we do our redraft, you're going to see those 3 names in the first round. And then, like, even better, Braden Smith ends up being a right tackle. Kamoko Toure, I think injuries kind of screwed his career. I think he would have been a very good edge 2 in the league. Taquan Lewis, I don't really remember too much from him, but, like, Naheem Hines was a fine scat back. Jordan Wilkins was kind of there in the committee. Zaire Franklin still with the squad. This is a big home run of a draft. Man, good on the Colts. I believe this is before Andrew Luck retires as well, right? Because he would retire at the beginning of the 2018 season, or we retire after? Let me look at this real quick. Okay, Luck would retire actually after the 2018 season. Golly, that sucks, man. What could have been? But that's a really good class. Okay, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I mean, just looking at this, the most notable name here is DJ Chark, who is now kind of trying to get a bigger contract. Like he's bounced around. Went to the Lions on a 1-year deal. He got banged up, but he had a really strong, I think, finish to the season. Now he's with the Panthers. But this is a big miss of a class. They got nothing out of this. This class sucked. Like, Bryant ended up not being that guy. Harrison, he moves on to actually, was it the Browns where he was an okay depth guy? But I don't even know where he's at now. But yeah, no, this is a really bad class. The Jaguars were in purgatory at this point, man. Because wasn't this I think this was the season, coming off the season where they got to the AFC Championship game. Golly, man, it was trash. They rode that defense. That's what it was. All right, the Houston Texans. Trying to remember. Oh yeah, they lost picks because of moving up to get Deshaun Watson, which ends up being worth it. Obviously not right now, but I mean they got a lot of picks from Deshaun Watson, so it's like not entirely not worth it. They ended up getting Watson, who kept that team pretty competitive, and then they were able to move on from that mess and actually get a lot of picks out of it. I don't think anyone's on the team anymore from this squad. I know Jordan Thomas isn't there anymore. I believe Atkins isn't there anymore. Kiki QT injuries have kind of like hurt him. I thought he could have been a solid slot or sub package receiver. But yeah, we haven't really seen him. Justin Reed, obviously the best player that they got out of this class. But then he ends up moving on to the Chiefs. So it's like, yeah, you could say this is a miss of a class, but I mean, they traded away that draft capital to get Deshaun Watson. That ends up being worth it. But yeah, it ends up like your class ends up being hurt because of it. Well, then again, they also just didn't pick well. Like Justin Reed being their best 3rd round pick. I mean, like I said, let's go look at all 4 of these. Justin Reed being the best pick and you don't even retain him. All right, Tennessee Titans. I don't recall why they don't have these middle round picks. They don't tell me why either. But they draft for Sean Evans, who's like an okay run stuffer. And even at that, it's like, he's depth. Harold Landry, honestly, probably should have been the 1st round pick. But ends up being a guy they get in the 2nd round. He ends up being really good for them. Dane, was it Krushank? Krushank? I can't say his last name. But he ends up being an okay depth guy and special teamer for a little bit. But Landry, like, man, curious, where did they lose all those picks from? Let me know in the comment section below. Where's their 3rd and their 4th? Did they bring in guys for that, or was that part of a trade last year? I can't recall. But given that they only had, I mean, this is like the Dolphins, except for like Dolphins only had a 2nd and a 3rd this year, but they hit big on Harold Landry. Evans, whatever, not that good, but you don't plan on hitting on these guys. So like, I'm gonna give it a meh. I don't know. People might have something else. People might not think it deserves that, but I'm gonna give it that. The Denver Broncos. So they have actually some pretty good looking picks here, and Bradley Chubb. Obviously, they trade him to the Dolphins for a 1st rounder. You're welcome. So I guess technically you kind of, I mean, they weren't getting the same like level of draft pick, not a top 5, but like Chubb was honestly, when healthy, pretty solid. Cortland Sutton, another guy, pretty good when healthy, but that's kind of been the thing for him. Josie Jewell ends up being the other starter they get out of here. So looking at those first 4 rounds, they had 3 starters. Very good. Trade one away for a first rounder. Yeah, Royce Freeman ends up not being a great pick. Isaac Yiadom doesn't end up being a good pick. They don't hit on any of their day 3 picks, which I think is fine. But like all in all, man, I'm just still gonna give it meh. I got mixed feelings about the draft class. Because it's not like they don't have like a high end starter here. You can maybe make a case for Chubb, but even Chubb, man, I feel like he's trending towards like edge 2, you know? Or at least as a Dolphins fan, that's how I feel about it. I didn't love the trade. All right, we got the Chargers. And they grab Derwin James. He ends up falling to him at 17. When healthy, this guy's amazing. Nwosu was an alright rotation guy for him. Now he's kind of like the edge 2 at Seattle. So that ends up being a solid pick. Justin Jones was a solid pick. Now he's with the Bears, I think. Believe so. Kazir White, guy that they probably should have brought back. Especially considering how cheap he's been going. Like, he ended up having a cheap contract with the Eagles. Now he's with the Cardinals. Cheap contract. Probably could have kept him. Quisenberry was like okay depth. Like Justin Jackson was pretty okay depth. So, in my opinion, they hit on their first 4 picks. Just they end up not re-signing 2 of them. So I think it's a hit, man. They hit on their first 4 picks. Did they make big differences? I mean, outside of James, no, but they got solid players. All right, we got the Kansas City Chiefs. They're missing draft capital because of trading up for Mahomes, which is worth it. But what do they get in the rest of the class? Nothing. This class is bad. It's just bad. We're going to give it a miss. This is a bad class. Well, I mean, we moved up and got Mahomes. That should mean something. Yeah, it meant something in the 2017 class, not this 2018 class. I'm judging what you picked here. Golly. But yeah, no, that's bad. Like, the guy, actually, I was a big fan of Watts. And I was just shocked that this guy could never get into like the 3-man rotation at safety. Nadi, he's still with the squad? I think he is. I think they brought him back. Kind of just this big boy run stuffer. Yeah, he's still with the squad, so at least they got one player still around. Las Vegas Raiders. I think they're actually still in Oakland here, but Colton Miller ends up being a really good pick. I know there was a lot of hesitancy after year 1, like, whoa, but he really grew into a really good pick. Arden Key, I mean, he's bouncing around the league now, but like he's finally emerging. It's just unfortunate, like he didn't for the Raiders. They don't really hit on PJ Hall or Brandon Parker, so it's really just Miller here. Maurice Hurst looked promising, but now he's over with the Niners just as a depth guy, really of no note. So it's like the only thing you're getting from this class is Miller, but I mean, that's a franchise left tackle. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's meh. Like, I feel like I give a miss if like you got nothing out of this class. Like nothing. You'd be like, well, the Chiefs, they got Nadi. Nadi is like depth. You got nothing. So at least they got a really good high-end starter. So I'll give it a meh. Which means I probably should get the Broncos a hit. So maybe yeah, let's go back and let's change the canon on this. I feel like that probably deserves a hit. Does it? Look at this. That day 2, man. They got Cortland Sutton and Josie Jewell. That's pretty solid, yeah. All right, Dallas Cowboys. We're starting with the NFC. They got Leighton Vander Esch, which it's a shame. It feels like that neck injury kind of cost them. Like he's not been the same player since, but he's adequate. He's solid. Connor Williams ends up being a pretty good guard, now center for the Dolphins, but he ends up being pretty solid for the Cowboys. They hit on Gallup. They hit on Armstrong, who's a good rotation, more so early down edge player. Dalton Schultz was very good for them. They didn't bring him back, though, of course, after franchise tagging him. It's so funny. Mike White. Now Dolphins backup. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. We freaking got Cedric Wilson in 2, dude. What the heck? Dolphins here. We're just picking up the 2018 class for the Cowboys. Guarantee you, Vander Esch would have made it to free agency. Would have picked him up, too. So, honestly, Wilson was pretty solid for the Cowboys. This feels like a hit of a class, and you'd be like, well, I mean, look at it now. Neck injury really hampers, this first-round pick, because I think Vander Esch would have been better than what he is now. Williams was a very solid player. Yeah, he's not with the squad now, but, I mean, he was very good for them, win with them. Gallup's still there. He's all right. He's okay. Armstrong, he's okay. Schultz, they didn't bring back these players, but I feel like they hit on these players, so I'm going to give it a hit. All right, Philadelphia Eagles. They actually, I believe, traded out of the first round, but their best pick, honestly, their best 2 picks. They start the draft hot, and then they finish it with even a better pick. And even Josh Sweat, man, he has emerged into a very quality pass rusher. Avonte Maddox is an all right slot player. Goddard, top 10, maybe top 5 tight end in the NFL. Jordan Mailata, probably a top 10 tackle in the NFL. This was a huge hit. Great class. Right, the New York Giants. So they drafted Saquon Barkley at number 2 overall. Terrible. That's terrible. BJ Hill ends up being a really good player. Then they let him go to the Bengals. Lorenzo Carter, he was always kind of meh. He's more of a rotation or a depth guy. Now he's with the Falcons doing that. Willie Hernandez is he had a good rookie year. Then kind of fell off, and then I think he was all right for the Cardinals last year. But yeah, I'm going to just go ahead and give this a miss, man. Be like, whoa, what about Saquon? We had a good pick with Saquon. It's okay. It's a running back. How many more wins did it lead to? 0, you say? Not surprised. Okay, we got the Washington Commanders. I think they were still the Skins at this time. Yeah, they were. And Daron Payne ends up really being the only player that matters at this point. The only guy that's still with the roster. So, they just extended him. Guys, obviously things got weird with him. We don't need to get into it. Deron Christian, I feel like, is a good depth option around the league now. He's a bit of this journeyman. So, safe to say, they sucked. Their day 2 was trash. Tim Settle was an alright depth guy. Now he's with the... was he still with... He's still with Washington, right? No. Did he end up going to... He went to the Bills. I believe he went to the Bills, and then... he's still with the Bills. Okay, so, yeah. Good depth guy. I thought Sean Dion Hamilton was a pretty solid sub-package linebacker, but he's not with the squad anymore. Trey Quinn, everyone was like, oh, he's such a good slot guy. He's not. So, yeah, they really just have Payne to show for it, which is ironic. But their day 2 sucked. Their day 3, they got settled but didn't even retain him. So it's I'm going to give it a Met just because Payne's a really good player. So... you lucked out, Washington. You lucked out. The Chicago Bears. So they grabbed Roquan Smith. They couldn't get a deal done with him. They trade him to the Baltimore Ravens because wasn't it a 2nd-round pick he got traded for? James Daniels they don't retain him, but I think he's been a solid player in the NFL, whether it's center or guard. But now he's with the Steelers. Anthony Miller ends up being a big miss. I don't even remember this cat. But they actually, Javon Wims, wasn't that the cat that punched Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? Could be wrong about that. But Bilal Nichols, he ends up being a good, like an okay, like depth rotation guy. I think he's with the, I think he's with the Raiders still. But like, yeah, it kind of sucks that everyone in this class has moved on from. But like, I feel like you hit on your first 2 picks. You got a decent player here in the 5th. I don't think it's a complete miss of a class. Meh. And I mean, at least you got a 2nd rounder back for Smith. All right, the Detroit Lions. Oh, their luck with running backs is terrible. So hopefully it gets better. We'll see with Gibbs. But Kerryon Johnson, man. I loved Kerryon Johnson. But you look at these first 4 rounds, and they hit on Ragnow. They hit on Tracy Walker. He's still with the squad. Terrell Crosby, I thought was a pretty good depth tackle. He's not with the squad anymore. But yeah, like injuries kind of hurt Johnson. Hands kind of whatever. But like, I know you look at this and it's like, well, center and safety, they're not high value positions. It's true they're not, but I don't know. I'm going to say I'm in between Met and a hit, so I'm going to give it a meh. I'm going to give it a meh, but maybe I say I think I'm going to stick with meh. Just because lack of position of value. I don't know. It's pretty close. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Okay, Green Bay Packers. Jair Alexander. Phenomenal pickup. Great pickup. Obviously, things don't work out with Josh Jackson. He actually just, I think, tore his ACL trying to make a comeback to the league. And they legitimately miss on, like, everything. Just everything. They miss on Josh Jackson, Burks, Moore. To be fair, those are their first 4 round picks. St. Brown's now with the Bears. MVS now with the Chiefs, but he did all right for them. Getting Alexander was kind of huge. I'm going to just say meh. I'm going to give it meh. Like, they missed really bad on these on day 2 and then early day 3. The Minnesota Vikings. Like, looking at this, you might look at Daniel Carlson and be like, whoa, he works out as a kicker. And it's like, yeah, for the Raiders, look at that, man. I feel like we saw this in last week's video when we were going over the 2017 draft. Look at these kickers that were drafted that are now good for other teams. Why draft kicker? Drafting kicker's stupid. That's right. I'm looking at y'all, Niners fans. I'm looking at y'all. Did y'all just bring in Jack Bailey too? No, y'all did. The Dolphins did. Y'all brought in Zane Gonzalez, I think. But Brian O'Neill ends up being a really good pick. We're probably going to see his name in my redraft of this class later this week. But that's the only name they hit on. Tyler Conklin. He ends up being really good. Like an all right tight end too. And he goes to the Jets and he shows he's really not more than just that. But they miss on Hughes. They hit on O'Neal. I kind of want to say it's meh. I don't know. The rest of that class is really bad. I'm going to give it a miss. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is actually a really good class because you look at these 3 second-round picks, and really you only hit on Carlton Davis, MJ Stewart. He's kind of like this flexible defensive back now that's just bouncing around the league. Ronald Jones. Things didn't work out with that, but luckily you get to the 3rd. Alex Kappa ends up being really good for y'all as a guard. Jordan Whitehead was a solid safety. And obviously, you hit on Vita Vea. So, like, yeah, you miss on these next 2 picks, but then you hit on these next 3. For all intents and purposes, you just didn't bring back Kappa or Whitehead. So I'm gonna give it I'm gonna say they hit. I think they did a solid job. All right, on to the Atlanta Falcons, and to be honest, that Calvin Ridley pick ends up being really good. It's just like, it's unfortunate that the whole gambling thing like cost them a year, but they were able to move on from him and get good draft capital back for him. Isaiah Oliver obviously doesn't work out. Sanat doesn't work out. Ito Smith doesn't work out. And matter of fact, their next 2 picks are better than anything they did on day 2 or in the 4th round. Russell Gage ends up being an average, solid enough slot receiver. Foye Oluokun ends up being a solid linebacker there. Now he's with the Jags. Gage with the Bucks. Ridley with the Jags as well. So it's like, you look at it, it's like, well, they have nothing now from it, but it's like, I don't know. They hit on that. They essentially hit on these other 2 guys. I'm gonna give it a meh. Maybe that's a bit too lenient for the Falcons. The New Orleans Saints, they move up. They give away 1st rounder next year to move up to get Marcus Davenport. Injuries, but when on the field, he's really good. But he turns into nothing for them. They end up moving on from him. Traquan Smith doesn't work out. Rick Leonard doesn't work out. They get Boston Scott ends up being better for like the Eagles. Will Clapp was bad. Like, kind of just miss on this whole class. You just missed. All right, we got the Carolina Panthers. So DJ Moore ends up going to the Bears, part of that big trade to eventually get you your quarterback of the future, though. Dante Jackson's been a solid pick for the Panthers as well. Ian Thomas, they want him to be more than just kind of this tight end 2 guy, but I feel like that's just what he is. Marquise Hayes was a fine pick at the time. He did all right for him. Yeah, I mean, this, like, Moore is huge for him. Like, Moore really is. They hit on these first 2 picks. This one's kind of fine. Haynes is good depth. I'm gonna say this is. I'm gonna say they hit. I think they did good. I think they do good. San Francisco 49ers. So wow, Mike McGlinchey ends up being a really good pick. Now he's with the Broncos. Dante Pettis, nothing good. But Fred Warner, home run pick. You got Tarvarius Moore, who I think projects as a starter this season for the Niners. Street ended up being a solid depth guy. DJ Reed was really good for the Niners. Plays for the Seahawks, ends up moving to the Jets, and he's just one of the better number 2 corners in the league. Like, he deserves more respect on his name. So yeah, and to be fair, Fred Warner is like one of the best linebackers in the league. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, they hit. Good on them. Got the Arizona Cardinals. Oh, no. Josh Rosen ends up being a bad pick. It sucks. At least they get a 2nd rounder back for him in the following draft, where the Dolphins are stupid. And to be fair, I didn't mind the trade at the time. I was like, hey, let's take a shot on a guy that was a top 10 pick. It just didn't work out. Christian Kirk ends up actually being a pretty darn good pick from him, for them. But he ends up, they let him go into free agency and go signs with the Jags. Mason Cole was never good for the Cardinals, and he's had, honestly, let's be fair to him, he's been all right for the Steelers. Chase Edmonds, not great for the Dolphins, just not great. So, like, they get nothing out of this class. Like, they get a few good years from Christian Kirk. That's it. This class was a big miss. Big miss. We got the Los Angeles Rams. Any notes here why they don't have first round picks? Oh. Why was it? Oh no, they traded this pick to acquire Brandon Cooks because Cooks bounced from the squad a year later. Okay, that's interesting. But what happened to their second rounder? No, yeah, that's what they did. Wow. That blows my mind. I did not know Sammy Watkins was with the freaking Rams. Like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm still trying to process that. I kind of don't want to believe it. There you go, Joe. Wow, really spent a year with the Rams. Wow, what a garbage pick. Wow. Golly. Well, I guess we could look at their draft now, but yeah, so they traded their second and their first for wide receivers that stayed for a year. Brian Allen had a really good contract year, but that's been about it. John Franklin Myers ends up being good for the Jets, not for the Rams. The jury is still out on Joseph Noteboom. We got, was it Okoro Kakwo? He's with the Browns, and he's gonna now. That sucks for him. Zadarius Smith is now with the squad. The Vikings just traded him away, and now this dude's gonna be back into a rotation role. This guy can't catch a break, dude. No one will give him an opportunity to be a starter, but it'll be fine. That pass rush should be pretty scary. But yeah, no, this is a big miss of a class. Looking more into it, yeah, this class sucks. The trade sucked too. I mean, I guess we'll see how Noteboom does. Oh, and this is the final pick here, final draft class. We got the Seattle Seahawks. We got Rashad Penny, Rasheem Green. I mean, obviously Penny injuries, but you shouldn't spend first rounders on the running back position. Disley's still around. Disley's been okay for him. Shaquem Griffin ends up not really being much more than a depth guy. Trey Flowers is now bouncing around the league. Okay, let's be honest. Their best pick is Michael Dickerson. This class sucks. Okay, it's a miss. It's a miss. Their best pick is their punter. Their best pick is their punter. This is a bad class. But that's it for the video. I'm going to be doing a redraft of this class Friday also. If y'all stuck around for the end of the video, I'm going to go ahead and spoil. I'm doing my edge rankings for the 2024 class on Wednesday. So be on the look for that. I am going to start building my new office here in my house. I got to build a wall to close up my, what do they call it? Breakfast nook, I guess. So we're gonna like hopefully when the season starts, we're gonna have like a new space. So yeah, get used to, at least appreciate this while you can, because we're gonna be in a new spot come time when the season starts. But that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing as always. Until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.